It started with the red and blue lights flashing in my rearview mirror, sharp, pulsing, violent colors that carved through the late afternoon haze. My son, Noah, was asleep in the back seat, his head tipped to the side, lashes still wet from crying. He'd had a rough day at school. I had left work early to pick him up, stomach knotted with the kind of worry that only single parents really understand. I eased the car to the side of the road. Gravel crackled under the tires. My hands trembled slightly as I shifted into park. The siren cut off. Silence, except for Noah's soft breathing and the compressing weight in my chest. I hadn't been speeding. Not really. The meter might have climbed 5 miles over the limit, but that was because I kept looking at him in the rearview mirror, trying to catch his expression, trying to figure out what had happened at school that made his teacher call me. But none of that mattered now. Not with the police lights burning behind me like a second sunset. A car door slammed. Steady footsteps crunched over gravel. Then, a knock on the window. I lowered it slowly. The officer leaned down, and for a moment all I saw were mirrored sunglasses and a reflection of my own tired face staring back at me. When she lifted the glasses, I froze. Not because she was intimidating, but because she was disarmingly, almost startlingly, beautiful. Dark brown eyes, a sharp jawline, soft lips pressed into a firm, professional line. Her voice, when she spoke, was crisp but gentle. "Good afternoon, sir. I'm Officer Elena Rivers. Do you know why I pulled you over?" I cleared my throat. Honestly, no. You were drifting between lanes a bit. Everything okay? I glanced at the back seat. My son. He's had a tough day. I might have been a little distracted. Her eyes softened when she looked at Noah. Just slightly, just enough that it told me she wasn't the type who used emotional distance as armor. "Gotcha," she murmured. "Well, I still need to run your license and registration. You know how it goes." "Of course." My hands fumbled in the glove compartment. Papers, receipts, car manual, a pack of tissues, a leftover juice box, divorce documents I still hadn't moved out of the car. I pushed them aside and found the registration. When I handed everything to her, our fingers brushed. Her breath hitched, maybe from the cold wind. Maybe not. "Wait, hey," she said, stepping back. Noah shifted in his sleep at the sound of her boots walking away. I exhaled slowly. I didn't expect what she said next. Didn't expect anything at all, really. Just a ticket. A warning. A lecture about safe driving. Something routine. Something forgettable. But when Officer Rivers returned, her face was unreadable. She held my paperwork in one hand, the half-written ticket in the other. "Mr. Walker," she said, reading my name on the license. "I can let this go if everything checks out, but I need to ask you a question." I frowned. "Sure." She tapped her pen against the ticket pad, hesitating. That alone struck me. Police officers don't hesitate. They don't fumble. They don't second-guess their words. Then her gaze lifted, direct, unfiltered, and intense enough to cut through the quiet of the moment. "Are you married?" The question blindsided me. My heart thumped once, hard. "No," I replied. "Divorced." A slow breath left her chest. Something like relief, small, careful, hidden, flickered across her face. She held out the ticket, but didn't let go of it when I reached for it. Not immediately. "If you weren't married," she whispered, voice so low I almost thought I misheard, "I'd say something I'm not supposed to." The world paused. The road, the air, the still sleeping form of my son. Everything just stopped, and without meaning to, without knowing why, a confession spilled from my lips. "I'm not married." Her eyes locked onto mine, really locked, with a warmth that wasn't appropriate for the uniform or the situation. But the warmth didn't last long. Her radio crackled loudly, shattering the fragile moment. She flinched and stepped back. "Dispatch, go ahead." A beat of silence, then a voice. "Officer Rivers, we have a flag plate near your position. Vehicle registered to Michelle Granger. Suspected involvement in a domestic disturbance earlier today. Approach with caution." My blood ran cold. Michelle Granger. My ex-wife. No, that had to be wrong. She didn't even live near here anymore. She, Another crackle. Repeat. Possible connection to an infidelity-related altercation. Caller mentioned a boyfriend. Vehicle was seen speeding from the scene. The words hit me like a physical blow. Infidelity-related. Boyfriend. Michelle. Officer Rivas turned sharply toward her cruiser, hand on her holster. I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. The world was suddenly too bright. Too loud. Stay in your vehicle, sir, she ordered, not unkindly, but firmly, completely different from moments earlier. But, Michelle, what does that? Stay. In. The. Vehicle. She jogged back toward her patrol car. Noah stirred behind me, rubbing his eyes. Dad? What's happening? I swallowed hard. Nothing. Buddy. Just stay buckled. My mind spun. Flag plate. Domestic disturbance. Infidelity. A boyfriend. Michelle. My ex-wife had cheated on me years ago. That's why the marriage fell apart. I had spent the last year trying to rebuild some kind of peace, some kind of predictable existence. But hearing her name tied to that word again, infidelity, sent a violent surge of emotion through me. Not because I still loved her, but because the betrayal had never fully healed. And now, somehow, she was tangled in something dangerous. Something close enough for police to be alerted. Something close enough that Officer Rivas was rushing back into her cruiser to respond. I watched the officer radio in again. Then she stiffened. Her gaze snapped to me. Her hand hovered over her gun. Sir, she called out, voice sharp and commanding. I need you to step out of the vehicle. Now. My stomach dropped. What? Why? I didn't. Now. Fear spiked through me as I pushed the door open and stepped out, hands raised. Noah cried out behind me. Dad! It's okay. I shouted back, heart hammering. Just stay in your seat. I looked at Officer Rivas, but she wasn't looking at me. She was staring past me, at my trunk, at the one thing I had forgotten about in the chaos. The thing Michelle had dropped off 2 nights ago, saying it was old stuff from the house she never bothered to take after the divorce. A box, unlabeled, sealed with duct tape, left in my trunk, never opened. Her voice shook slightly when she spoke. Step away from the vehicle. Hands where I can see them. I backed up slowly. What's wrong? I whispered. Her eyes darkened. That, she said, pointing at the trunk, matches a description of a box seen during the disturbance call. Your ex-wife allegedly tried to remove evidence from the scene. My blood froze. Evidence. My throat closed. What kind of evidence? She didn't answer. She just held her gun in both hands, stepped forward, and reached for the trunk release. Sir, she said quietly, for your safety, I need you to stay back. The trunk popped, the lid lifted. Officer Rivas' breath caught. And then she stared at me, eyes widening, face draining of color, her gun lowering just a fraction. Mr. Walker, she whispered. I stepped forward despite her warning. What is it? What's inside the box? She swallowed hard, looked at me with something like horror, and said, So, you need to explain why your ex-wife put this in your trunk. I stared at her, heart pounding, mouth dry. Then she stepped aside, and I finally saw what was inside the box. My entire world tilted, because whatever it wasn't innocent, and it wasn't mine. The inside of the box didn't make sense. Not at first, not to my eyes, not to my mind, not to whatever part of me still believed my life could stay simple. Officer Rivas stood rigid beside the open trunk, one hand still instinctively hovering near her holster. Her jaw tightened when she saw me inch forward. Sir, she warned softly, please stay back. But I couldn't, not when something about the way she looked at that box made my stomach twist into knots. What is it? I whispered, taking another step. Please, just tell me. She hesitated, not out of fear, but out of calculation, as though she were carefully measuring how much truth I could handle in one breath. Then she exhaled slowly and moved aside only an inch, just enough for me to see inside. At first glance, it looked like a pile of ordinary things. Documents, envelopes, a small black pouch, a flash drive, what looked like printed photographs sealed inside a clear plastic sleeve, a burner phone, and then a blood-stained kitchen towel. Not soaked, not dripping, but stained. Dark, rust-colored, old enough to dry but recent enough to be unmistakable. My throat constricted. No, I choked. That can't be. A fresh memory slammed into me. 2 nights ago, Michelle standing on my porch with that same box in her arms. Her hair was a mess, her eyes restless and darting, her voice too quick, too soft, too pleading. Just keep it at your place for a bit, okay? I can't take it home right now. I'd been exhausted. I'd been irritated. I'd said, whatever, Michelle, just stick it in the trunk. I hadn't wanted to deal with her. I hadn't cared what it was. I just wanted her gone. Now, the consequences of that one moment were staring me in the face. Officer Rivas looked at me, studied me, with unsettling intensity. Mr. Walker, she murmured, I need you to back away from a vehicle. Please. I couldn't move, couldn't lift my feet. I was frozen, anchored by shock and the crushing weight of implications my brain refused to fully process. Blood, a burner phone, documents, a flash drive. What is all this? I whispered. I don't know yet, she answered carefully, but it's not normal, and given the call we received. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Noah, still strapped in the backseat, called out, Dad, what's happening? His voice cracked. Instinct overpowered fear. I turned immediately. It's okay, buddy. Everything's okay. But nothing was okay. Not with the officer stepping back to radio something in. Not with a box of potential evidence sitting in the trunk of my car. Not with my ex-wife's involvement in a domestic disturbance being mentioned by dispatch only minutes earlier. And not with the sudden, horrifying realization that Michelle might have used me, again, for her mess. But this time, the mess was darker, heavier, dangerous. What domestic disturbance? I asked, forcing my voice steady. What exactly did dispatch say earlier? Officer Rivas paused with her hand on her radio. You'll be brief when we know more. No, please. You said my ex-wife's name. You said she took evidence. I have a right to. She cut me off, firm but not unkind. Mr. Walker, right now my priority is keeping you and your son safe. Whatever this is, whatever she may have been involved in, I need to proceed carefully. I swallowed hard. Fear tasted metallic. For a long, tense moment, she simply observed me, searching for signs of deceit. Her gaze moved from my trembling hands to my eyes, then back to the box. If you didn't know what was in here, she said thoughtfully, you're in a dangerous position, legally, emotionally, and possibly physically. What do you mean physically? Because if someone was looking for this box, they may come looking for you next. Cold rippled across my skin. My mind raced through memories of Michelle. Her anxious pacing 2 nights ago, her sudden insistence on leaving the box with me, her refusal to meet my eyes, her shaky laugh when I asked if she was okay. I'd been too tired to care. That was my mistake. Officer, I whispered, Michelle wouldn't be involved in something violent. Rivas didn't flinch. People do things when they are scared. Desperate, angry, betrayed. That last word hit harder than I expected. Betrayed. I felt it echo in the hollow part of my chest where the remnants of our marriage still lived. Suddenly, Officer Rivas turned her head slightly, listening, her hand rising to her earpiece. A tense crackle, a dispatcher's voice I could barely make out. Then her entire posture changed, tightened, sharpened. She cursed it under her breath in Spanish. What? What is it? I asked. She lifted one hand, signaling me to stay silent. I could hear faint pieces of the transmission. Victim identified. Multiple bruises. Claims ex-wife. Fled the scene. Possible accomplice. Vehicle registered to. Then her eyes snapped to mine. Mr. Walker, she said, voice low and controlled, your ex-wife is now considered a person of interest. I staggered backward slightly. Person of what? In what? What happened? She stepped toward me, as if trying to keep me grounded. A man was injured, badly, at a residence not far from here. He told officers your ex-wife attacked him after an argument escalated. He said she panicked and left with something that could implicate her. I stared at her. The world spun. Michelle had hit someone, hurt someone. Seriously? No, I whispered. She's not violent. She's impulsive, stupid, reckless, but not violent. Officer Reavers looked at the blood-stained towel. Her silence said enough. The air thickened with disbelief, grief, horror, and a rising panic I couldn't swallow down. Then something even worse hit me. What did you say earlier? I whispered. About an accomplice. She hesitated. The victim claimed she wasn't alone. Someone else helped her. Helped her do what? I don't know, she said softly. But... She paused again, listening to another short radio update. When she spoke next, her voice was different. Lower. Heavier. Mr. Walker, the victim claims the accomplice was a man. Someone she's been involved with. My chest collapsed inward. Michelle. An affair. Another one. Even after the divorce, even after she swore she'd changed, even after she promised she was done lying. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Waves of heat and cold washed over me. Anger. Confusion. Heartbreak. Not romantic, but bitter, humiliating, like I was being dragged back into the same nightmare I'd already survived once. Officer Reavers watched every flicker of emotion pass over my face. I know this is a lot, she murmured. I laughed, but it wasn't really a laugh. More like a broken sound. You think? Then her expression shifted, like she was about to ask something she knew she shouldn't. Mr. Walker, she said slowly, is there any chance whatsoever, that she thought you would protect her if she was in trouble? My stomach twisted. There was a chance. A very real one. Michelle had always known I was the type who stepped in, covered for her impulsive decisions, smoothed over the chaos she created. Even after the divorce, I never fully stopped helping, if she asked. For Noah's sake, I told myself. For stability. But now? She'd put me in the center of a crime scene without my knowledge. My God, I whispered. She used me again. Officer Reaversy's voice softened. Maybe she didn't intend to. Maybe she was scared. I shook my head. No, she knew exactly what she was doing. A tense silence fell. The weight of it felt suffocating. Finally, she stepped closer, close enough that I could see the faint crease of empathy between her brows. Mr. Walker, there's more. I stiffened. What now? The victim said Michelle mentioned you, just before she left. I froze. Mentioned me? How? I demanded. What did she say? Officer Reavers looked directly into my eyes. She told him, she said softly, that you would take care of it. That you always take care of everything. My heart slammed against my ribs. She said what? That you'd handle the box. That you'd cover for her. That you'd never let anything bad happen to her. A bitter laugh escaped me. She doesn't know me anymore. Maybe not, Reavers said, but she thinks she does. Something changed in her expression then. A flicker of understanding. A flicker of pity. A flicker of something else. Something deeper, more personal. She used your kindness against you, she murmured. I've seen people do that. I've had it happen to me. I looked at her sharply. Her eyes shifted away, only for a moment. Before I could respond, another voice, Noah's, broke through the tension. Dad! He sounded scared now, not confused, not tired, scared. I rushed to the passenger door and leaned inside. It's okay, I said, forcing calm into my voice. I'm right here. He looked at me with wide, watery eyes. Is Mom in trouble? His voice cracked on the last word, and that, more than anything, punched a hole straight through my chest. I swallowed the truth, swallowed the pain, swallowed the fury. I don't know yet, I whispered, but we're safe. Okay, we're safe. Behind me, I heard the snap of a radio. Officer Reaversy's tone sharpened. Copy that. Send units to my location. I have the box. She stepped closer. Mr. Walker, backup is on the way. For what? To take the evidence and to make sure you and your son are protected. I stared at her. Protected from who? She didn't answer immediately, and her silence told me everything I feared. Finally, she spoke. Your ex-wife fled the scene with a man, she said quietly, and I just received word that they may be heading in this direction. The world shifted beneath me. The air thinned. My heart pounded so loudly I could feel it in my throat. Heading here? I whispered. She nodded. Mr. Walker, I believe Michelle is coming for the box. For a long, suffocating moment, I didn't breathe. Couldn't. Michelle, coming here, with a man I didn't know. A man she'd hurt someone over. A man she might trust more than she ever trusted me. My pulse throbbed in my ears as Officer Rivers' words settled like ice beneath my skin. Mr. Walker, she said, speaking far more calmly than the situation deserved, I need you to stay focused. Everything depends on that now. How long until they get here? I asked, my voice thin. Unknown. Dispatch only said the witness saw them leave heading east. That puts this road in their possible path if they are trying to avoid main streets. So they could be minutes away. Yes. A nauseous wave rolled through me. My son, my car, this box, my past, my stupid, blind past, crashing into the present with the force of something violent and inescapable. Officer Rivers snapped into action again, her disciplined instincts tightening every muscle in her body. She moved quickly to her cruiser, keeping one hand near her holster and her eyes scanning the road. No sirens, no engine sounds, nothing but heavy, smothering silence. The kind of silence that comes right before a storm. I swallowed hard. What do we do? First, she said, you get your son out of the car. My heart lurched. Why? Isn't he safer inside? No. Vehicles give a false sense of safety. If your ex-wife or her accomplice decide to force a confrontation, you don't want your son pinned inside a car. The words force a confrontation burned into my skull. I rushed to the back seat and carefully unbuckled Noah. His small fingers clung to my jacket. Dad, what's going on? Why are there police? Why did she say Mom's coming? I pressed a hand to his head. I'll explain later. Right now, you stick to me like glue, okay? He nodded, terrified. We stepped out just as Officer Rivers approached, scanning the horizon. She knelt to Noah's eye level, her voice gentler than I expected. Hey, buddy, I'm Officer Rivers. I'm gonna keep you safe, okay? You see that big police car over there? He nodded, eyes wide. I'm gonna have you wait in the backseat of it with the door locked. Your dad will be right next to the car, and I'll be in front. No one can get to you. All right. He swallowed hard and nodded. His small hand slipped into mine with a tremble I felt deep in my own bones. I walked him to the cruiser, opened the back door, helped him in. The moment it clicked shut, some part of me, some primal, fatherly instinct, felt slightly less suffocated. But only slightly. I turned back to Officer Rivers. Tell me everything. Don't soften it. She gave a slow, decisive nod, then stepped closer, her voice low so Noah couldn't hear. The witness said your ex-wife was panicked, violent, desperate. She grabbed something from the scene that she claimed the victim had no right to keep. We don't know what that means. My eyes drifted toward the box. And the accomplice. I whispered. He was arguing with her before they left. The witness said they weren't on the same page. That sentence hit me with a strange, twisted sense of dread. They weren't on the same page. Meaning the accomplice wanted to flee. Michelle insisted she needed the box first. The box she left with me. Rivers nodded grimly. Exactly. My throat tightened. So she's dragging this stranger into her mess and now dragging me and my son into it too. Not a stranger, maybe, Rivers murmured. Infidelity cases often connect people in volatile ways. Anger, raw and deep, rippled through me. Michelle had blown up our marriage with cheating. Left me to raise our son alone. Swore she'd change. Promised she'd be trustworthy. And now she was involved in this? As if reading my spiraling thoughts, Rivers spoke again. We still don't know the full story, but I need you steady. Your ex-wife could be scared, or dangerous, or both. I paused. Then something sparked inside me. Officer, I said quietly, you said earlier that the victim claimed she heard him. Yes. And she ran. Yes. And she packed a box with sensitive items. Yes. I stared at the ground, heart hammering. Can I see the photos? The documents? Something. Reavers hesitated. Hard. You understand these may be part of a criminal case. She made me part of it the moment she put that box in my trunk. Silence. Then she exhaled and reached back into the box, pulling out the stack of photos in the plastic sleeve. She slid one out just enough for me to see it. The air punched out of my lungs. My knees nearly buckled, because staring back at me from that glossy print was a picture of Michelle, standing outside a motel, her arms wrapped around a man I had never seen before, her face buried in his neck, his hand tangled in her hair, her expression unmistakable, intimate, recent. Officer Reavers watched my reaction carefully. Do you recognize him? She asked softly. I shook my head. Never seen him. But Michelle, she looks happy. She looks alive. She looks like she's choosing someone over and over again. Someone who isn't the father of her child. And for some reason, despite everything, I felt something sharp and humiliating twist in my gut. Not jealousy. Not heartbreak. A different kind of pain. The pain of being used. Exploited. Taken advantage of again. My voice cracked. Is that the victim? No, Reavers said. We checked. The victim was a neighbor who tried to intervene when things escalated between Michelle and this man. A cold realization hit me. So the accomplice, the one she left with, could be the man in the photo. Her affair partner. Possibly. My anger burned hotter, but fear burned hotter still. What if it's dangerous? We're assuming he is, she said. The wind shifted suddenly. A low rumble of an engine echoed down the empty road. Not close, not far, just present. Reavers stiffened. Backup should have arrived by now. My heart spiked. Is that? Stay behind me, she commanded, hand sliding to her holster. She scanned the road again, eyes narrowing. I stood close to the cruiser, one hand pressed to the window where Noah sat curled in the seat, staring out with trembling fear. The sound grew louder. A vehicle, an engine, getting closer. Reavers lifted her radio. Dispatch, ETA on my backup. Static, no response. Dispatch, come in. More static. Her eyes sharpened. That's not good. My breath caught. What does that mean? It means someone might be jamming the signal. Oh, we're in a dead zone. Either way, we're on our own for now. The engine grew louder still. Closer. Too close. Reavers turned to me, her expression urgent. Mr. Walker, I need to ask you something. What? When she dropped off the box, did she say anything strange? Anything at all? A flicker of memory surfaced. Michelle at my door, hair messy, breath uneven. Just keep it at your place for a bit, okay? I can't take it home right now. But then, a second memory, a quieter one, a tremor in her voice as she rushed back to her car. Please, don't open it. I froze. I think she was scared, I whispered. Really scared. Reavers nodded tightly. That helps. The engine noise was close now, too close to ignore. She moved into a defensive stance, her hand on her weapon, her gaze unblinking. Get close to the cruiser, she ordered. Put your hand on the door. Do not move unless I tell you. I obeyed. The car came into view around the bend. A dark gray sedan, dented on the side, speeding, unsteady. My heartbeat thundered so hard it hurt. The car slowed more, and then it stopped 20 feet from us, engine idling loud in the dead, breathless quiet. My mouth went dry. The driver's door opened. A woman stepped out, disheveled, panicked, hair wild, eyes red. Michelle. Officer Reavers drew her weapon instantly, voice booming. Stop right there. Hands where I can see them. But Michelle didn't even flinch. Her gaze locked onto me. Only me. Her voice cracked across the road like shattered glass. Eli, please, give me the box. The world tipped. All the breath left my lungs. Because the man from the photo, the man who'd been with her, stepped out from the passenger side, his eyes cold, focused, on me. Michelle's voice shook like she was breaking apart. Eli, please, she whispered again. He's going to kill me if I don't get that box back. Michelle's words hit with the force of a physical blow. He's going to kill me if I don't get that box back. My pulse slammed into my throat. Officer Rivers' stance sharpened, feet planted, gun raised, breath steady. But Michelle didn't even look at her. Not once. Her eyes were locked on me with a desperation so raw it vibrated in the air. The man beside her leaned slightly forward, watching everything with a predator's stillness. His hands were empty, for now, but his presence carried an unmistakable threat. A threat that was very much directed at me. I felt Noah shift inside the police cruiser. Even from outside, I could sense his fear like heat through glass. Michelle, I said quietly, voice shaking despite how hard I tried to control it. Don't move. Just stop right there. We can talk. She took one trembling step closer. Officer Reaver snapped, Stop or I will detain you. Michelle flinched but didn't back away. Her eyes filled with tears that streaked through the dirt on her cheeks. Eli, she whispered, please. You don't understand. I never meant to involve you. I swear. My jaw clenched. I didn't mean to be involved. I said, bitterness tightening the words. You made me involved. She shook her head frantically. I had no choice. Reavers cut in sharply. Step away from him. Michelle, right now. But Michelle didn't move. She just kept staring at me, pleading, trembling, unraveling. The man next to her stepped forward half a step, eyes scanning Reavers, then me, then the cruiser where Noah sat today. Every muscle in my body locked. His gaze on my son was like a knife brushing skin. Reavers noticed it too. Sir, she barked at him. Hands up, now. He smirked, a slow, taunting smirk that made every instinct in me scream danger. Michelle whipped toward him. Don't do anything stupid, Eric. Please. So that was his name. Eric, a name that felt wrong in the air, like it came from a place of shadows. He didn't raise his hands. Instead, he tilted his head at Michelle. You said your ex-husband was reasonable. His voice was calm. Too calm. He doesn't look reasonable. He shifted his gaze to me again. You didn't tell me he'd have a cop babysitting him. Babysitting. Reaver snapped. Drop the attitude. You're one command away from being on the ground. He didn't even blink. Didn't flinch. Didn't acknowledge her. His eyes stayed on me. Eli, is it? He said, like we were introducing ourselves at a dinner party instead of in the middle of a roadside standoff. I didn't answer. Michelle rushed over his words, voice cracking. Eli, please, just give me the box. He won't leave without it. I won't leave without it. If you give it to him, he'll let us go. He'll leave you alone. Reaver scoffed. You can't possibly believe that. Michelle whipped toward her. Yes, I. She faltered, tears filling her eyes again. I have to believe it. Eric's eyes flicked to her in annoyance. You're talking too much. She recoiled like he'd hit her. Something in me twisted violently. Michelle had done unforgivable things. Yes, but she was still Noah's mother. Still someone I had once loved. Seeing her shrink from him sparked something I didn't want to feel. Reavers took a careful step forward. Michelle, she said, tone gentler now. You're scared. I see that. But you don't need to listen to him. You're not safe with him. Michelle's eyes burned. You don't know anything. Don't I? Reavers asked quietly. The victim said he heard shouting. Said your partner here demanded something you wouldn't give him. Said he tried to calm the situation and was attacked. Michelle's lip trembled. Eric stared daggers at Reavers. He interfered. Reavers' voice sharpened. He interfered because he thought you were hurting her. Eric laughed softly. Everyone thinks they're a hero until they realize they aren't. The air thickened, the tension coiling so tight I feared it would snap into violence any second. Michelle sobbed and grabbed at my sleeve, her fingers cold, trembling. Eli, I know you hate me. I know I destroyed everything. But I'm begging you, please give me the box. Reavers barked. Step back from him now. Michelle didn't. Her nails dug into my arm. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she cried. I'm asking for time. He'll kill me if I don't deliver that evidence. Evidence. That word again. I forced myself to focus, to cut through the storm swirling around us. What's in the box, Michelle? She shook violently. I can't say it here. You have to. I can't. She practically screamed it, voice slicing through the quiet. If I tell you, he'll... Eric moved faster than anyone expected. He grabbed Michelle's arm, yanking her back hard enough to make her stumble. Enough, he barked at her. Reavers' gun snapped toward him. Let her go. He ignored her. Michelle struggled, but not with real force, more like a cornered animal trying but failing to escape. I stepped instinctively forward. Don't touch her, I growled. His eyes lifted to mine, calm and cruel. Or what? Reavers positioned herself between us, gun steady. So, release her and put your hands up. Last warning. Michelle broke free just enough to scream. Eli, run. Take Noah and... Eric's hand flew to his waistband. Something metallic glinted. Everything happened at once. Drop it. Reavers yelled. Michelle screamed. Noah cried out from inside the cruiser. My heart detonated in my chest. Eric didn't drop it. He pulled out a gun, small, compact, ugly, and aimed it not at Reavers, but at me. Michelle threw herself between us. A shot cracked. The world split open. I didn't feel pain, because the shot didn't hit me. It didn't hit Michelle either, because Reavers moved like lightning. She slammed into Michelle from the side, dragging her down and out of the trajectory. Another shot fired. Sparks exploded off the cruiser's door where Noah Saturday. My scream ripped my throat raw. Noah. Reavers rolled, gun raised, and fired once. A single, deafening shot. Eric staggered back, surprised, confused, then collapsed to one knee, clutching his shoulder. Reavers shouted, Don't move. But he didn't listen. He aimed again, at the accuser, at my son. A roar ripped out of me, a sound I didn't recognize as human or sane. I lunged, without thinking, without reason, driven by something primal and furious. Reavers fired again. Eric dropped the gun, but he didn't fall. Instead, he turned and ran, bolting for the car, blood streaming down his shoulder, his breath ragged. Reavers cursed and sprinted after him, but he dove into the driver's seat, slammed the door, and sped off, tires screeching, engine howling. Michelle collapsed to the ground in sobs. Noah screamed from inside the cruiser. I stood in shock, lungs refusing to expand, vision tunneling. Reavers stopped chasing when the sedan disappeared around the bend. She jogged back fast, gun still drawn, breath ragged. Is everyone okay? Noah. Eli. I rushed to the cruiser and yanked open the door. Noah threw himself into my arms, shaking violently. Dad! Daddy shot at me. He tried to... I've got you, I whispered, pulling him in so tight I felt his heartbeat slam against mine. I've got you. You're okay. You're okay. Reavers checked Michelle next, making sure she wasn't hit. She wasn't. She was just shaking violently, staring down the road like she expected Eric to circle back and finish the job. After a long moment, Reavers spoke, breath unsteady. He wasn't trying to escape, she whispered. He wasn't running away. I looked at her, still holding Noah close. What do you mean? Her jaw clenched. He was going back for whatever he thinks is in that box. Michelle let out a broken sob. Reavers looked at me with a heaviness that made my stomach twist. Eli, whatever's in that box, it's worth killing for. She drew in a breath, lowered her voice. And your ex-wife still hasn't told us the worst part. I turned to Michelle. Michelle, I said, voice low and deadly serious, what the hell did you drag us into? She looked up at me with tear-streaked cheeks and whispered, "I didn't just find evidence of his crimes. Eli." Her voice shook violently. "I found evidence of yours." The world stopped. Everything in me froze. No. No. What? What? I choked. "Michelle, what are you talking about?" She lifted her shaking hands to her face. "He told me," she sobbed. "He said he had proof. Proof you never wanted me to see." My voice snapped, sharp and wounded. "Proof of what?" She pressed a hand to her mouth and whispered the sentence that shattered the ground beneath my feet. "Proof that you cheated on me before I ever cheated on you." For a long, breathless moment, everything inside me collapsed into a cold, echoing silence. Michelle's words didn't just land. They detonated. "Proof that you cheated on me before I ever cheated on you." My vision blurred for a heartbeat, the world tilting like I'd been shoved off a cliff. Somewhere behind the roaring in my ears, I could hear Noah's uneven breathing against my chest, feel the shake in his small shoulders. Officer Reevers's voice was a muffled current, background noise I couldn't parse through the storm tearing through my skull. I didn't cheat. Not then. Not ever. The accusation wasn't just wrong. It was impossible. My voice came out raw. "Michelle, what the hell are you talking about?" She squeezed her eyes shut like the words burned. "I didn't want to believe it," she whispered. "But he showed me pictures, messages, dates, times, things I never knew. Things that—" her voice strangled itself. "Things that made everything make sense." "No," I said sharply. "No, nothing about this makes sense." Reavers stepped closer, hand instinctively hovering near her holster again, not in threat but tension. "Michelle," she said firmly, "you need to start explaining from the beginning. Now. Because right now, you're the only one who knows why a man opened fire on a child and fled the scene bleeding." Michelle buried her face in her hands, rocking slightly. "I didn't know it would go this far," she whispered. I swear I didn't know." I clenched my jaw. "Start talking." She looked up with bloodshot eyes. 5 months ago, I met him by accident. I swear I didn't plan anything. I was going through the worst time in my life. You and I weren't talking. You barely looked at me anymore." "Michelle," I snapped, "don't twist this into some emotional excuse. You cheated. You chose that. Now tell us about the evidence." Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. Eric. She'd been talking about Eric, the man who just chose shooting at my son over being arrested. She went on, voice unstable. "I didn't tell him anything personal at first. I didn't even know his last name. We just talked, and then things got complicated. And then I made a mistake with him." "Mistake?" My teeth ground. "He almost killed Noah." She flinched hard. "I know," she whispered. "I know, but I didn't know who he really was. I swear I didn't. And by the time I realized—" "Realize what?" Reavers cut in. Michelle's voice dropped to a tremor. "That he wasn't just some guy. He was connected to people you don't cross. People who hide behind him. People he works for. I didn't know until he started asking about Eli." A cold weight settled into the pit of my stomach. Why would he ask about me? I demanded. Michelle squeezed her arms around herself. "Because he thought you were lying to me. About a lot of things." Her eyes shifted painfully toward mine. "And then he said he had proof." "I never gave him anything." I growled. "We've never met. Ever." "I know that," she cried. "But you think he needs you too? Eli, he can make anything look real. He showed me messages from your number. Screenshots, calls, photos, hotel receipts, all dated before I ever stepped out of our marriage." Reavers stiffened. "Forged." "Yes." Michelle sobbed. "But they were perfect. So perfect I didn't know what to think anymore." A tremor went through me. Rage, betrayal, disbelief. "You thought I cheated," I said softly. Michelle broke entirely. "I didn't want to. But he kept showing me more. He kept saying you were hiding things. That you had secrets. That you were just better at covering your tracks than I was." She clutched her head. "I tried to confront you. Remember when I asked if you'd ever lied to me? You brushed it off. You said not everything has to be a fight. My stomach dropped. That day, I remembered it. She'd been quiet for hours afterward. Strangely, relieved, because he thought we were even. Michelle, I said quietly, he manipulated you. She nodded frantically. I know that now. But back then, I was confused, guilty, angry, and he knew it. He fed it, and I fell for all of it. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, because I didn't want the truth. Her voice broke. If the proof was real, then I wasn't the only one who ruined us. The honesty in that was devastating. Reeves exhaled sharply, like she'd been holding her breath through all of it. Michelle, what's in the box? Michelle froze. Her entire body went still. I didn't steal it, she whispered. I found it. I never meant to. Eric left it in my car by accident. When I opened it, I realized he had evidence on dozens of people. Fake evidence. Real evidence. Blackmail material. Things that could destroy lives. Careers. Families. And then I saw the file with Eli's name. My heart thudded painfully. There's a file on me. She nodded. And on me. Reeves asked quietly. Michelle's eyes widened, like she hadn't expected that question. Yes. Reeves's jaw clenched, her entire posture going sharp and cold. For what? She demanded. Michelle shook her head helplessly. I didn't read yours. I swear I didn't. I only saw your name tabbed on a folder. I was in a panic. I grabbed the whole box because I knew he was using all of it to control people. Blackmail. I murmured. Yes. Michelle breathed. He binds people with lies, or truths. Whatever works. Noah clutched my shirt tightly, still shaking from everything that had happened. I pressed him closer. My voice was rough. Where is the box now? Michelle hesitated. Michelle, I snapped. Where is it? Her voice cracked. In the trunk of your car. The blood drained from my face. Reeves's eyes widened. You mean the car we left behind at your house? Michelle nodded miserably. That means Eric, Reeves began, is headed straight for it. I finished. Reeves turned toward her cruiser. We need to get there. Now. Before she could move, Michelle grabbed her wrist desperately. Wait, she cried. Please, you don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly, Reeves shot back. Here's an armed suspect who fired at a child and is bleeding out while racing to destroy evidence. That's all I need. But Michelle shook her head violently. No, you don't get it. If he gets that box, it's over. Nobody will ever take me seriously. Nobody will believe he did all this. Reeves frowned. Michelle, he shot at your son. That's attempted murder. People will believe you. No, Michelle's voice broke entirely. You don't understand what the evidence is about. She looked at me with terror so real it stole the air from my lungs. You asked why he targeted you, Eli, she whispered, why he wanted you involved. I stared at her, dread cooling like ice along my spine. Yes. She hiccuped through her tears. It's because he said he needed leverage over you too. Why me? My voice was barely audible. She shook her head slowly. Because one of the files isn't just about what he thinks you did. Her hands trembled. It's about something he's convinced you're going to find out. My breath caught. Find out about what? Michelle choked on the answer, eyes shining with terror. About something he did to us years ago. A beat. A long, horrible beat. Michelle whispered the words like a confession carved from pain. Eli, Eric knew us before we ever met him. My skin went cold. As what? I whispered. Her voice shook. As the man who tried to destroy our marriage long before I ever cheated. The world tilted. My knees nearly gave out. Michelle looked like she was dying inside. Eli, the man I cheated with, the man I thought was a stranger. She swallowed. He wasn't. My heart hammered. She whispered the truth that shattered the last remaining certainty in my life. He'd been watching us for years, and I don't think I was his first target. Michelle's last words lingered in the air like smoke from a gunshot, thick, choking, impossible to ignore. He'd been watching us for years. My pulse stumbled. A cold pressure wrapped itself around my ribs as though invisible hands were squeezing tighter with each passing second. Noah clung to me, face buried against my shoulder. Officer Reeves' stance had shifted completely. She wasn't just tense anymore. She was alert in a way I'd never seen before. As if every instinct she had was screaming. Her voice was low, steady, and edged with something dangerous. Michelle, when you say he was watching you, watching all of you, what exactly do you mean? Michelle's lips trembled. Her eyes flicked between us, swirling with panic and shame. I didn't know at first, she whispered. I never would have spoken to him if I'd known. But after I found the box, after I saw all the names, I realized mine wasn't the first. Or the second. The thought turned my stomach. Reeves crouched to Michelle's level, tone razor-focused. Start from the beginning. No more fragments. No more half-truths. Tell us everything. Michelle hugged her arms around herself, like she could hold her body together by sheer force. It started 5 months ago, she said, voice wavering. But he told me something one night, right before everything, before the affair, before things spiraled. I forced myself to breathe as she continued. He said he knew me from somewhere. I laughed, thought he was just trying a line. But then he said something that froze me. Her eyes rose to meet mine with slow, painful clarity. He said he remembered our wedding. My blood turned to ice. Reeves went completely still. Your wedding? Yes. Michelle's voice cracked. He described the venue, the lights on the ceiling, the ivy wrapped around the beams, the music during the first dance. He even mentioned the peach-colored bouquet my sister dropped in the aisle. My limbs went numb. He was there. I whispered. Michelle nodded with a broken sound. He was watching. Reeves exchanged a look with me, one filled with a sickening realization. Something about this wasn't random, wasn't coincidence, wasn't about an affair that spiraled into violence. This was deeper, intentional, calculated, and it started long before any of us understood. Michelle wiped tears with the back of her dirty hand. I thought he was lying. People crash weddings for fun sometimes, right? But then he said something else. Something that didn't make sense at the time. She swallowed hard. He said he had kept tabs on us, that he'd watched the cracks in our marriage grow. I felt the world tilt. Cracks. There weren't any cracks, she whispered. Not back then. We were happy. We were, God, Eli, we were good. But he said he knew they were coming. A soft moan escaped her throat, the sound of someone drowning in memories. And then I saw the file with your name in the box, she whispered. Photos, dates, screenshots, things that didn't make sense. Pictures of you going to work. Pictures of you picking up Noah from daycare when he was still in diapers. Pictures of you talking to your sister outside your mother's house. Pictures that go back years. Reeves swore under her breath. Stalking. Documenting. Long-term predatory behavior. Michelle nodded helplessly. He tracked you, Eli, even when we were still solid, even before we ever fought. He had notes, pages of them, about your habits, your routines, what you liked, what annoyed you, how long you stayed angry after an argument, everything. A chill crawled through my spine. This is insane. I breathed. Michelle shook her head. There's more. Of course there was. There always was. Reeves braced herself. Go on. Michelle looked up at me with eyes that held so much terror I forgot, for a fleeting second, why she and I had fallen apart. He didn't just watch us, she whispered. He didn't just wait for things to break. Her voice shrank. He helped break them. I felt my breath catch, a sharp pain shooting through my chest. What are you saying? My voice came out hollow. Michelle clamped a shaking hand over her mouth. Tears poured between her fingers. He admitted it, she whispered. One night, when he was drunk, he laughed and said he couldn't believe how easy it was. He said he'd been nudging things for years. Nudging, Reeves echoed, eyes narrowing. How? Michelle closed her eyes as if reliving something she desperately wanted to forget. Messages, she said. Emails. Fake accounts. Anonymous tips. Lies. Things he fabricated to make us suspicious of each other, to chip away little by little until we were too exhausted to trust anymore. I felt the ground sway beneath me. Noah whimpered, clinging tighter. Reeves took a slow breath, steadying herself. He manipulated your marriage. Reeves asked. Yes, Michelle whispered. He said he'd been waiting for the perfect opening. And when he saw me alone one night, when you left early after that argument about the rent, he saw his chance. My throat tightened so hard I thought it might close. That argument, I said quietly. You said later you couldn't remember why you got so angry. Michelle nodded. Because it wasn't about the rent. It wasn't even real. I frowned. What? She looked at me helplessly. That bill you showed me, the one that said we were behind on rent, it was fake, Eli. The memory hit like a punch. I had opened the mail, pulled out the notice, and confronted her with it, furious and confused. But now I remembered something else. I had tossed the envelope later, and I had never seen it again. Not in the trash. Not anywhere. You're sure? I rasped. Michelle nodded. Positive. He said he made it himself. My pulse thudded painfully. Reeves exhaled slowly, eyes narrowing. He's been setting traps, planting evidence, creating conflict. He's a social predator. The worst kind. The long game type. Michelle sobbed softly. I didn't know. I didn't know until it was too late. Reeves straightened. Why tell him all this? Why confess? Michelle's answer made my stomach drop. He told me because he thought he owned me, because he thought I would always stay quiet. He thought I'd never leave, that I needed him. Reeves's jaw tightened. And when you found the box, you realized he'd done it to others. Michelle nodded. Dozens, maybe more. I rubbed my forehead. Why us? Why me? Why was he so obsessed with destroying us? Michelle hesitated. Her lower lip quivered. Because you were inconvenient. I froze. Excuse me. She looked like she was about to be sick. He said you weren't supposed to be part of my life. My breath caught. What does that mean? Reeves asked, voice razor sharp. Michelle squeezed her eyes shut, the truth dragging itself out of her like something painful and heavy. He said he knew me before you. Years before you. He said he picked me, but then you showed up. You derailed whatever plan he had. My blood went cold. Picked her. Michelle, I whispered, what exactly did he want with you? Her eyes filled with despair. I still don't know. A long silence swallowed the space between us. Then Noah whispered into my shirt. Dad! I looked down. His little voice trembled. Why is that man trying to hurt us? My throat closed. I pulled him closer, burying my face in his hair. Reeves spoke softly. Because he's terrified. Michelle frowned. Of him? No, Reeves said. Of the box. She turned toward her accuser. We need that evidence before he gets to your car. If we lose it, we lose everything. But Michelle didn't move. Her voice came out small, brittle. There's something else. Reeves stopped. Michelle! He told me, if you two found out the truth, he wasn't afraid of going to prison. My stomach twisted. Then what is he afraid of? Michelle stared at us with a terror that felt deeper than fear, like she had seen something she wished she could erase from memory. She whispered, He's afraid you'll find out who he works for. For a moment, all I heard was a wind slithering across the empty road. The sky had turned to pale, washed-out gray, like even the sun was holding its breath. When Michelle said those words, He's afraid you'll find out who he works for, I felt something inside me sink, heavy and irreversible. Not because it sounded dramatic, but because something in the way she said it, the dull, haunted tremble in her voice, told me she wasn't exaggerating. She was remembering something. Something horrifying. Officer Reeves straightened slowly. Not with anger, not with shock, but with a calm, cold precision that meant she was thinking faster than either of us could. Michelle, she said quietly, you said earlier that Eric wasn't just some guy. You said he was connected. To who? Michelle's fingers twitched. Her throat worked. She didn't look at us. She stared at the asphalt like the answer was written in the cracks. "I don't know," she whispered. Reavers didn't buy it. Neither did I. "Try again," Reavers said, voice low, but Michelle's breathing quickened. "I don't know," she repeated, louder this time, voice cracking sharp on the last word. "He never said name." Reavers stepped closer. "Then how do you know he's afraid of someone? What did he say? What did he show you?" Michelle closed her eyes, shaking. Then she whispered, "He said they watch everything, even him." A shiver tore down my spine. "He said he was just a piece," she went on, "just a tool. If he messed up, if he stepped out of line, if he drew the wrong kind of attention, they'd replace him." Reavers' eyes hardened. "They?" Michelle nodded miserably, and when I asked who they were, he told me something I still don't understand. Her voice dropped low, like she was repeating something she'd tried to forget. He said, "They're the kind of people you don't meet unless you're already dead." A cold weight pressed against my chest. This wasn't just about blackmail. This wasn't about an affair spiraling out of control. This wasn't even about Eric, not entirely. This was bigger. Reavers rubbed her forehead like trying to piece an invisible puzzle together. She muttered under her breath. I knew something didn't fit. His organized, calculating, too clean. People like him don't operate alone. Noah shifted in my arms, still trembling. I kissed the top of his head, even as dread gnawed deeper into my stomach. "We don't have time to figure out the whole network," Reavers said. "Right now we have one priority. Stop Eric from getting to that box." Michelle's breath hitched. "His hurt. His bleeding. He might not make it far." "No," Reavers said. "Men like him don't care about bleeding. Pain only slows normal people." Michelle looked like she was about to be sick. Reavers turned to me. "Put Noah in the back seat. Buckle him in. We're going after him." I hesitated. Shouldn't backup be here by now? "It's coming," she said, jaw clenched. "But we're closest. If he reaches that box first, everything changes. Evidence disappears. Trails go dark. And you both," she glanced at me and Michelle, voice tightening, "you stay targets." Michelle hugged her elbows. "He won't give up, not until he destroys everything in that box." I stared at her carefully. "Michelle, did he ever say why he keeps all that evidence? Why he blackmails those people? I mean, what's the point?" Michelle's voice shrank into something small, almost childlike. "He said it wasn't blackmail. He said it was insurance." "Insurance for what?" Reavers asked. Michelle shook her head. "He said you only need insurance when you expect disaster." A chill coiled in my stomach. Reavers took a slow, steady breath. "We need to leave. Now." Before she moved, though, Michelle said faintly, "Eli, there's something else I never told you." I stiffened. "When I met him," she whispered, "when he first approached me, he didn't flirt. He didn't compliment me. He didn't even introduce himself." She swallowed hard. "His first words to me were, 'You must be Michelle.'" Reavers froze. A muscle jumped in her jaw. Michelle continued, voice trembling. "And when I asked how he knew my name, he smiled and said, 'I've been waiting a long time for you to be alone.'" Something inside me snapped. "Enough," I said sharply, stepping closer. "We have to go. Now. Because if we didn't leave this stretch of road, if we didn't beat him to my car, my family's past, present, and future could vanish into some invisible organization's black hole." Michelle wiped her face and nodded shakily. "Let me ride with you," she pleaded. "Please. He'll kill me if he sees me alone." Reavers hesitated, then nodded once. We piled into the cruiser. Noah buckled into the back seat, still holding the stuffed dinosaur he never let go of. Michelle sat beside him. I slid into the passenger seat. Reavers flipped on the lights but kept the sirens off. We're close enough that noise might give him the advantage. She accelerated, gravel spitting out from under the tires. The road unwound fast beneath us. The landscape blurred by, fences, empty fields, clusters of trees, and each passing second felt like a countdown. My pulse throbbed in time with the flashing blue lights. Michelle clutched her seatbelt. He'll go straight to your car, she murmured. He knows the layout. He met my eyes at the first time he followed me there. I turned my head sharply. He's been to my house. Michelle looked down at her hands. Eli, he's been to your house dozens of times. My breath left me. How do you know that? Reeves asked. Michelle's voice grew faint. He described rooms I never showed him. Things in your garage. That mark on the hallway wall from when Noah accidentally hit it with his scooter. He knew about the photos on the fridge. My skin crawled. He had been inside my home. Not once. Not twice. Dozens of times. My fists clenched so tight my nails cut into my palms. When the turn from my neighborhood appeared in the distance, the tension grew suffocating. Reeves slowed just enough to stay controlled, but kept the car roaring forward. Stay low, she ordered. If it's there, don't draw attention. As we approached the final turn leading to my street, Michelle suddenly pointed ahead. There, she whispered sharply. Eli, look. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. Then it snapped into focus. My house. Front door slightly ajar. Lights off. No movement. But parked at the curb, only half visible behind a neighbor's truck, was a dark sedan. Eric's. Reeves's hands tightened on the wheel. He's here, she muttered. The cruiser slowed to a crawl. Then Noah let out a soft, terrified breath. Dad, he whispered, pointing toward the driveway. Someone's inside. Because through the front window, a shadow moved. A tall one. Deliberate. Searching. Michelle clamped her hand over her mouth. He's not alone, she whispered. Reeves froze. What did you just say? Michelle's voice cracked. Eric never works alone. The air inside the cruiser turned so dense and silent it felt like we were all sinking in it. Michelle's words hit me like a blow to the sternum. Eric never works alone. Reeves didn't turn her head. She didn't blink. She kept her eyes fixed on my house, on the shadow moving behind my living room window, while one hand slowly drifted toward the holster at her hip. Michelle, she said quietly, explain. Right now. Michelle's breath kept catching like her lungs couldn't decide whether to inhale or collapse. He always has backup, she whispered. Not always the same person. Sometimes two. Sometimes none that I could see. But is never actually alone. Did he ever mention names? Reeves pressed. Descriptions? Anything. Michelle shook her head violently. No, he'd mentioned that someone was watching the exits, or that someone was handling the cleanup, or that he had to report something. He didn't talk about them directly. It was like he was afraid of them too. A fresh wave of dread crawled over my skin. So you're saying, Reeves said slowly, that someone might be in there with him right now. Michelle nodded, trembling. I stared at the silhouette drifting through my living room window, tall, slow, deliberate like someone confident no one would interrupt them, like a man taking inventory of someone else's life. That wasn't Eric's walk. Eric moved like a viper, coiled, ready to strike. This shadow drifted, calm, patient, calculated. Stay in the car, Reeves said sharply, pushing a door open as quietly as she could. I grabbed her arm before she stepped out. Officer, if they're inside. We aren't going in, she whispered back. We're observing until backup arrives. But I need a closer visual. I need to know how many are in there. I swallowed hard. Noah, still strapped in his booster seat, whispered, Dad, is a bad guy in our house. My heart broke a little hearing his voice shake, but I forced my tone steady. Yeah, buddy, I whispered, brushing his hair back gently. But we're not going near them. We're safe in here. Michelle had both hands clasped over her mouth now, eyes glued to the window. Another shadow appeared beside the first one. Not Eric. Too broad, too tall, too controlled. A second figure. Reeves muttered something under her breath, sharp, angry, and crouched lower, keeping the cruiser between us and the house. The seconds dragged out, the cruiser engine softly ticking as it cooled, the only sound against the thick, suffocating quiet of my street. Then Michelle's eyes widened. Oh, God, she whispered. They're looking for the box. A flash of heat surged up my spine. Where? Reavers asked, crouched behind the open door. Anywhere I would have hidden something, Michelle said. Eric knows I panic. He knows I act impulsively when I'm scared. He knows exactly what I'd do if I thought the evidence meant something. Her voice wobbled. He knows I'd hide it somewhere close. They were tearing my house apart, looking for the lockbox. The lockbox I had already moved from the trunk of Michelle's car. But they didn't know that. Not yet. Reavers, I whispered. What if they find the house empty? What happens next? She didn't answer right away. She studied the front door, the cracked edge, the way the wood splintered, the subtle buckling like it had been kicked in with professional precision. Then she murmured, "They won't leave, not until they find what they came for." Michelle curled into herself, whispering something under her breath. Some apology she said 1,000 times already. Then, a movement, a sound, not from inside the house, from the backyard. Reavers stiffened instantly. Movement behind the house. Michelle's breath stuttered. No, no, no. Reavers raised a hand to quiet her. Eli, are there entrances back there? Sliding doors? Windows? Kitchen sliding door, I whispered, and a side gate that doesn't lock in them all. Reavers cursed softly. They are surrounding the property. My pulse hammered in my throat. This wasn't two men looking for evidence. This was a coordinated sweep. Backup is 3 minutes out, Reavers murmured. We hold position until then. No one moves. But she said it more for herself than for us, because she didn't believe we had 3 minutes. The biggest shadow inside the house stopped suddenly, right at the window facing the street. He stood still, unnaturally still. Then, he turned his head slightly. Not fully, just enough to angle his face toward us. Even from across the yard, even through glass, even through dim light. I felt a cold, invasive intelligence in the way he moved. He knew. He saw the cruiser. He didn't flinch, didn't startle, didn't try to hide. He simply watched. My blood iced. Michelle grabbed my sleeve. Eli, he sees us. Reavers raised her gun slightly, hand steady. The second figure walked into view beside the first. Then, the front door swung open. Not violently, not kicked, not barged, just opened, like they were inviting us in. 2 figures emerged through the doorway, one tall and broad-shouldered, one slim but steady. Neither rushed, neither threatened. They simply stood on my porch, watching the police cruiser like it was an expected guest. And then, a third figure stepped out behind them. Not Eric, but he was limping. He placed one hand on the doorframe for balance. The bandage on his abdomen was soaked through with blood. He was pale, weak, but smiling. That eerie smile he always wore when he knew something we didn't. Reavers whispered, "Shit." Eric raised a hand, gesturing lazily, and the tall one reached into his jacket. Reavers jerked up her gun, but the tall man wasn't pulling out a weapon. He held something small, something metallic, my house key. Michelle let out a strangled cry. He had that for months, she whispered. He said he liked watching the places people felt safest. Eric's smile widened. He mouthed something. Reavers squinted. "It's for you," she whispered, realizing it. His mouthing it to Eli. I leaned forward. Eric's lips parted again, slow and clear. 3 words. Not threatening, not angry, not triumphant, just calm, measured, certain. It's not over. Then he lifted his hand again, and the tall man clicked the key between his fingers. A signal, a plan, but not to run. No, to wait, because they weren't trying to escape. They were waiting for something else, something behind us. Reavers sensed it a split second too late. Her eyes darted to the rearview mirror, and her face drained of color. "Eli, don't move." A shadow moved behind the cruiser. Tall, close, right outside Noah's door. The moment Reavers shouted, "Don't move," everything inside the cruiser detonated into pure, blinding fear. I didn't turn, didn't look, didn't breathe. Noah whimpered in his booster seat behind me, a small, fragile sound that shattered something deep in my chest. Michelle's fingers clamped around my arm so tightly her nails dug through my sleeve. Reavers slowly, agonizingly slowly, lifted her gun toward the rear window, but she froze before raising it fully. Not out of fear, out of calculation, because she could see what I could only sense. Someone was standing inches behind my son's door. A silhouette, tall, still, patient, the kind of presence that didn't rush because they never had to. Reevers's voice was barely a whisper. "Eli, keep your hands where I can see them." I nodded once, rigid. Michelle was shaking uncontrollably, tears already streaming. Oh God, please, no." "Quiet." Reevers softly, without looking back. Not unkind, just focused. Her eyes locked on the rearview mirror, on the shadow behind us, on the slight tilt of a head that suggested the person was leaning forward, looking inside. Then, a voice. Male. Low. Even. Calm in a way that felt wrong. "Officer Reevers," the man said through the glass. Like he knew her. Like this wasn't new. A cold wave rolled down my spine. He continued, "Lower your weapon." Reevers's jaw clenched. "You're on the wrong side of the law tonight." The man gave a quiet chuckle. Not amused. Just acknowledging. "You still think this is about law." My pulse hammered so hard the edges of my vision blurred. The man shifted slightly, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw a faint, unmistakable glint of metal. A gun, pointed downward for now, but too close to Noah's door, too close to the one person I couldn't lose. Reevers exhaled slowly, a controlled release of air, a trained response to panic she wouldn't let take control. "Move that weapon an inch," she said quietly, "and you won't walk away." The man didn't sound intimidated. Not remotely. Instead, he spoke with an unnervingly casual tone. "No one's here to hurt the child." Every muscle in me tightened anyway. Michelle whispered, please don't hurt him." The man didn't respond. Instead, a second voice rose from the front porch. Eric's, weak but sharp. "Eli," he called out, "come out of the car." Reevers spun toward him. "Stay where you are." Eric laughed, short, painful, mocking. "You think you have leverage? I'm half dead, officer. The only thing keeping me standing is adrenaline and spite." He took one careful step forward, gripping the shoulder of the tall man beside him. "And you can't shoot me," Eric continued, "because the moment you do, Caleb will assume you've given the order to take the kid." "Caleb," Michelle repeated under her breath, horrified. "That's his real name." The man behind our car, the one targeting my son, the one Eric had mentioned sometimes, but never clearly enough to identify, the one he feared. Reevers' expression darkened. "Your backup is a hostage taker now." Eric smiled faintly. "He doesn't take hostages. He prevents loose ends." My stomach dropped. This wasn't about the box anymore, or the evidence, or even Michelle. This was about eliminating threats. And now I was the biggest threat of all. Eric's voice cut through the silence again, annoyingly calm. "Eli," he said, "I'm trying to make this easier for you. For everyone." My jaw tightened. By surrounding my house? By threatening my son? His smile faded. For just a flicker of a second, he looked almost sincere. "That was never the intention," he said quietly. "We came to get back what belongs to us." "The box," I said. Eric nodded weakly. "Hand it over now and this ends. No one gets hurt." My heart pounded violently. He still thought I had it. Good. But there was no universe in which I was giving him anything, real or imagined. "This is a police cruiser," I said, voice shaking. "Your box in. Backup is minutes away." Eric's eyes sparkled faintly with something cold, amusement. "We know," he said softly. "We counted the minutes. We planned for them." He lifted his hand, snapped his fingers, and Caleb, the man behind us, opened Noah's door. Just a crack, just enough to let cold air slip in, just enough to shatter my last thread of patience. I twisted violently in my seat, but Reevers grabbed my arm mid-motion, fingers digging hard. "Eli, don't," she whispered. "Don't give him a reason." Noah whimpered again, smaller this time, terrified. Caleb didn't touch him, didn't speak. He just stood there, presence filling the space like a shadow with weight. Then his voice came again. "We want the box. Nothing else." Michelle sobbed. "We don't have it." Eric tilted his head. "Michelle, you hit it once. You'll do it again. That's why we can't leave without it." Then he looked at me. "Eli," he said softly, "hand over the evidence and you walk away clean. No more games. No more nights wondering who's watching your house." He paused. "And no more threats to your boy." Something snapped inside me. Not fear, not anger. Resolve. "You're not leaving with anything," I said. His expression barely shifted, but something cold flickered in his eyes. "Caleb," he murmured. Caleb's hand reached inside the accuser. Not for Noah, for the seatbelt. I felt Michelle scream tear from her throat before it even formed. That was it. That was the breaking point. Reavers shouted into a radio. "Officers down. Hostage situation. Immediate response." And Eric cut her off by shouting, "Enough!" The tall man on the porch stepped forward. Caleb gripped Noah's shoulder. A siren echoed faintly in the distance. Everything collided at once. And then, a gunshot. Not from Reavers. Not from Caleb. Not from Eric. From somewhere behind the house. A deep crack that split the night. Michelle flinched violently. Reavers ducked behind the door. Eric staggered. The tall man cursed under his breath. Caleb recoiled just enough for Noah to pull his arm toward his chest. Another shadow, a fourth figure, burst out from the side of my house. Not tall, not muscular, not threatening, but fast, desperate, a blur in the dark, rushing directly at Caleb. Michelle gasped. Her voice cracked open with shock. "Eric!" But not the Eric in front of us. This was someone else. Someone none of us expected. The real twist didn't hit until the figure got close enough for the porch light to catch. And my brain short-circuited. Michelle choked on her breath. Reavers froze. Even Caleb stepped back a half-step in genuine surprise. Because standing there, gasping for breath, face streaked with dirt, hair tangled, clothes torn, was her. The woman whose absence had started all of this. The woman whose things were still in my house. The woman I thought had left me. The woman I thought was gone. My wife. Alive. And looking at me with a kind of desperation that only meant one thing. She had been running from them too. And she wasn't alone. In her shaking hands, she held the lockbox. For a moment, nobody moved. The world compressed into a single, impossible image. My wife, my missing wife, standing in the yard with her chest heaving, mud on her knees, scratches up her arms, and the lockbox clutched against her like it was the last thing keeping her alive. And Michelle, sitting beside me, seeing her, letting out a cracked, horrified whisper. "No, no, this can't. She was gone. She left." Officer Reaver stared, stunned. Even she didn't have a script for this. Eric blinked, and for the first time that night, he looked genuinely rattled. Caleb, hand still dangerously close to Noah, stepped back, not out of mercy, but strategy, reassessment, threat recalculation. Because the one person nobody accounted for, the one person everyone assumed was missing, abandoned, dead, or worse, had just stepped back into the game holding the one thing all of them wanted. And none of them understood what that meant. Not yet, but I saw it instantly. She was afraid of them. Not me. Not leaving. She looked at me, eyes glassy, jaw trembling, like she didn't know if she had the right to say my name anymore. "Eli," she whispered, "I didn't leave you. I swear to God, I didn't leave." Everything in my chest tightened, twisted, ruptured all at once. I didn't have time to feel any of it, because Caleb recovered first. He stepped toward her, controlled, calculated, his weapon hand finally rising. My wife stumbled back, clutching the box tighter. Don't come near me." Michelle grabbed my wrist, terrified. "Eli, she has a box. They'll kill her." Reaver slowly lifted her gun. Nobody moves. Dropped the weapon. But Caleb didn't listen. His gaze never left the lockbox. Michelle leaned closer to me, whispering through tears. "He told me she was gone. He told me she ran." My wife heard her. She flinched. Her eyes didn't leave me, but pain laced her voice when she spoke. I didn't run. I tried to come home. I made it as far as the side yard before they grabbed me. I heard everything from inside the crawl space until they moved me. Reeves stiffened. You were in the house. My wife nodded. 2 days. My breath caught. She wasn't missing. She wasn't cheating. She wasn't gone. She had been inside my house while I had been tearing apart my sanity searching for her. Michelle sobbed. He told me she left you, that she was seeing someone else, that you'd never take her back if you knew. My wife stared at Michelle, not with hatred, with revelation. That's why he chose you, she said softly, because you believe what you're told when you're scared. Michelle broke down completely, but there was no time left to navigate the pain between them. The betrayal, manipulation, the twisted strings Eric had pulled in both directions. Because Caleb stepped closer, silent and deadly, my wife's breathing grew ragged. You're not getting this. I swear I'll smash it before I give it to you. Eric finally regained his voice. Don't. She flinched at the sound. He took an unsteady step forward. You don't know what's inside. Oh, she said, voice shaking but fearless. I know exactly what's inside. Eric froze. Caleb froze. Reeves narrowed her eyes. What's in the box? My wife looked at her. Not at me. Not at Michelle. At the officer. Her voice was barely above a breath. Names. The porch light flickered across her face as she continued. Officers. Judges. Business owners. People you'd never suspect. People who knew what Eric and Caleb were doing and helped. 57 names, dates, transactions, photos, evidence of trafficking and laundering so damning it destroys everyone involved. Reeves went still as stone. Eric hissed, Shut UP. My wife didn't. They were using me, she said, because of where I worked, because of the files I had access to, because I knew how to hide things better than any of them. Eric's voice came out strangled and furious. You were supposed to be loyal. She shook her head, tears finally spilling. I was scared. That's not loyalty. She held up the box, and I stopped being scared. Caleb raised his gun fully now. At her, not as a threat, as a decision. Enough, he said. Everything moved at once. Reeves dove sideways. Michelle screamed. Eric lunged forward in a last-breath attempt to stop Caleb. The tall man on the porch reached for his waistband. Noah cried out behind me. And my wife. She hurled the lockbox. Not at Caleb. Not at Eric. At the ground. With every ounce of force she had left. It hit the concrete. Hard. The metal dented. The latch cracked. But it didn't open. Caleb reacted instantly. He fired. Reeves fired. Blood sprayed. Someone hit the porch. Someone screamed. Someone fell. My ears rang so loudly I couldn't hear Noah's cries, Michelle's sobs, the shouts of backup finally flooding the street. Everything blurred. Lights. Voices. Black boots rushing past. Hands pulling me from the car. Strong arms lifting Noah. Multiple officers tackling Caleb. Reeves kneeling beside someone bleeding. Michelle collapsing against the bumper. But my eyes searched for only one person. My wife. She was on her knees in the yard, clutching her shoulder where blood seeped through her shirt. But she was alive. I ran to her. She looked up at me like she wasn't sure she deserved to. I cupped her face with shaking hands, tears stinging my eyes. Why didn't you tell me? I whispered. She exhaled a broken, trembling laugh. I tried. Eli, I tried every day. But they were always there. I pulled her against me, careful not to hurt her, holding her like something I thought I'd lost forever. Officers swarmed around us, securing everyone, weapons confiscated, suspects cuffed, Caleb pinned beneath 4 bodies and still snarling like an animal. Eric lay on the porch, bleeding from both the earlier wound and the shot Reeves fired. He wasn't dead, but he wasn't going anywhere ever again. He looked at me across the yard, tired, defeated, and yet somehow still hateful. Wasn't supposed to end like this, he muttered. My wife leaned into me, trembling. It was always going to end like this. Because she never ran, never left, never betrayed me. She fought, alone, terrified, but still fighting. Michelle approached us slowly, shaking, eyes swollen with guilt. I didn't know, she whispered. I swear, I didn't know he was lying about her. About you, about everything. My wife nodded. He used you, just like he used me. Michelle broke into sobs again. Reavers approached, clutching her radio, face grim. Paramedics on the way. We've got them all, every last one. And with what's in that box, this case is going federal. I held my wife tighter. The lights, the noise, the chaos, it all blurred around us. After everything, the doubt, the fear, the manipulation, the betrayal that wasn't, we were still standing. Not whole, not healed, but together. My wife looked up at me again, voice barely audible. Do you believe me? I swallowed hard, then nodded. I never stopped. Her lips trembled. Then she whispered the words that cracked me open completely. I never gave up on us. And for the first time in weeks, the world didn't feel like it was collapsing. It felt like it was beginning again.